Hi, I'm Daniel and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest, one of his advocacy, known a little bit about everything to be part of anything. No other than Mr. Daniel Tausan.
Daniel, it's good to be here.
Welcome, Mr. Daniel. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Yeah, my name is Daniel. I used to be a Canadian water polo national athlete. Wanted to be a doctor, ended up as a scientist. Didn't like the corporate world or where a lot of the biotech and a lot of the, call it, jobs were. So I decided to go my own direction. I want to be an ethical scientist. I want to be able to have the opportunity to connect you with the science that's important to help you transform your life. And so blood is one of my favorite topics and health is one of my favorite topics. What does it mean to be healthy? As you go to
Healthy is wealth, as they said.
That's
And
right.
thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Daniel. And let's talk about the five pillars of longevity. What
Let's
are
do
the five pillars, and why did you land on this specific framework instead of another models of longevity?
Yeah, it's trying to tease apart what is it that helps somebody make it to 100 years old. So when I look at the 100-year-old, the centurions or centenarians, however you want to pronounce it, what are they doing different than other individuals that are also healthy, right? So in science, you got to make apples to apples, oranges to oranges. You have to make the right comparison. Otherwise, you can get away with saying almost anything, right? Just depending on how you present and compare your information. So when you look at the healthy individuals that are they're passing away around 80, and you look at the centurions that are making it to 100, well, they got something phenomenal when it comes to their sleep and their recovery systems. They're doing a great job incorporating fasting or in fasting within their lifestyle. They are exposing themselves to cold or to hot, but cold very particularly seems to be more of a driver. They take care of their digestion a certain way. So they'll have, for example, a tiny little bit of alcohol in all cultures that make it to centurion to have this little practice. So something like a digestive. And then the final one is that there's a very particular temperament that comes in with being, call it lifelong healthy. Let's Another way to put it is no one that's a miserable prick makes it to 100 years old, right? So those are the five pillars in a nutshell, and then we can break them down further to make sense of what is it really that entails, so somebody can use those principles to make their life full of health, full of vitality, not necessarily making it to 100, but to live well even in their older years.
To live well, indeed. And tell us the phrase on your website, bridging the gap between health and science.
There's so much information that is stuck at the universities, and there's so much information that when you speak with a professional, a health professional, in which isn't presented to you at a level you can understand. It's this gatekeeping that's been happening for more than a decade for sure. And that my goal is to break that down, right? So if you don't know what a ketone is, okay, we're going to work backwards. Then you know what fat is. Okay, you know what fat is. Okay, well, let's now work into what a ketone is, and then slowly building up very important key ideas without having to know all the biochemistry. Knowing what a ketone is understanding, hey, I have to get my body to produce this because this results into me protecting my brain. This results into my heart being protected. And if I do this, I'm going to get a lot more health for the long term. I'm going to have less chance for any kind of neurological condition. I'm going to have less chance for stroke. I'm going to have less chance for all these issues. But another way to say is that my biological age, when I look at it, is going to be younger. I might be 60, but my biological age is going to be 45 because I'm allowing my body to renew itself. And so small and steady to get to what's important for you, because we all have different entry points to this stuff, but we all experience life. This isn't something like law or economics where you can say, nah, I'll just pay someone, or I'm not interested in this. Everyone has life experience in which they're sharing their biology. And you're interested, you participating in what I would say the N of one experiment. You're showing how Daniel Lucas exists, and no one else will ever be able to showcase that type of biology. So we can take you, we can study you across time. Now, you're already being studied to a certain extent with, population statistics. But if you'd like, we can take the structure and framework that science provides us, because science is a skill set. Science is a tool. It's not a religion, in which is sort of going in today's day and age in a scary
Yes.
way. Science isn't something to believe in. Science is something to know. The only part in science where you put a belief is that a scientist believes in objective truth, or in other words, to say objective universe, which in other words is when I wake up, it's still doing the same thing it was doing yesterday. It didn't change. So the rules of the game stay the same. They might be patterns and there might be massive call rhythms in which I'm not understanding, but they're for me to be able to say is something I can learn about and explore. They don't constantly random occurrences where I wake up into a new set of principles that are governing life. And that's the only belief that a scientist takes, right? So, in other words, my view of whether the Earth orbits the sun or the sun orbits the Earth makes no difference in the reality of it. The human opinion doesn't change the fact that there is something happening. And so, science is our tool, it's a framework of thinking so we can get to truth. We might only might be a percentage truth. In other words, that's the model. So when we talk about, okay, the energy systems of the body, or we talk about these pillars of longevity, is there more than five? Yeah, of course. You're just going to go down the list and saying which one has more and more impact. But if we had to pull out maximum five, after studying this for a long period of time, by the model that comes out, right? Many people in the public sphere, even scientists, when they just share and talk, they'll say hypothesis, but the right word is model. This is the model that we've come to be able to share and present to explain what we're seeing in terms of these observations and experimental results. So this is the model that we put forward. And I think it's very important for people to have this conversation, to have this clarity, rather to go on the bandwagon in this reactive, kind of emotional, I have to be right, so to speak, scenario. When you see two scientists speaking, it's very dry, very quick. It's very emotionless, where they're just trying to get to the next step of what they should do to be able to have confidence that what they're seeing is real, or to have confidence they know what to do to be able to get to the next step, to be able to showcase their model has, more or less predictive power. And that's the last bit of science that's very meaningful. The point of science, when you start observations and observing the world and measuring things and experimenting, it's all so that you can predict it. This is very beneficial. Then you can have it work for you and you can work within it effortlessly. That's what we're trying to do with science. And so we're trying to, with Timeline Sciences, with what I do, is we're trying to bring that to you for what you need. And it's mostly with health, right? So for longevity, what I call practical longevity. And it's, if you're struggling with disease, we'll break that down, because the majority of diseases you can deal with, unless you're born with a condition like hypermobility, or, you don't have an enzyme. That's, you have to learn how to work around that, or get very special type of, call it, treatment. But for everyone else, if you've grown into a disease, you can also grow out of it.
Very well said, Mr. Daniel. Truly, truly empowering. Is longevity more about adding years to life or life to years? How do you pillars ensures both?
It definitely is going to be both here. So if you're taking care of your recovery systems, right? So going to sleep, that's the buzzword here. You're going to go to sleep and you're going to have good quality sleep. Now, I would say our grandparents, they napped during the day. They'd wake up early and they would have a nap at some point in time. So when I take a look at the centurions, they incorporate this type of lifestyle: early to rise, early to bed, and they take breaks in the day. It might not be sleep as people intend, but you'll see pictures. The old gentlemen, they're sitting on a bench, they got the hat over their eyes, and they've just shut off. This is what is considered as active rest, but it's extremely important for your recovery systems, right? For your nervous system, for your heart, for your blood, for your lymphatics. So all of this is very simple. If you damage your recovery systems, you accelerate all the problems, right? And we know this from the cellular, tiny, tiny little level, right? I'm sure everyone knows what DNA is by today's day and age. And if you don't, catch up. So if you damage the DNA of a cell, What you've damaged is the reproductive portion of the cell. That means the cell can no longer make new machinery. So that cell can still survive for maybe a day or two, right? You get a little cell in a dish. I drop a little sugar in the corner. Even though I've irradiated its DNA, it can swim over to that sugar. But within a very short amount of time, it's going to fade away. It can't no longer sustain the renewal processes. So recovery systems, they're number one. And so the better you have in the ability to recover and recuperate, the longer and more mileage you're going to get out of your system. Heck, you can renew it possibly even longer than 100. And so the second pillar there with a notion that facilitates this idea of recovery systems is a notion of fasting. You can think of sleep as a form of fasting from activity, movement in your day-to-day activities. So it's not even the type of food, because the diet and nutritional components are very simple. The equation goes, you need certain nutrients to stay alive. You have to ingest the minimum amount of nutrients that you need. And how you get them is completely up to you. So this idea of, oh, I need, 60%, carbohydrates, 30% fat, 15 or whatever, 15% protein. I messed that up. But all of that is secondary. Right? That's fun and games. You need to get the nutrients that you need in order to be able to survive. So once you've done that, you have to figure out the fact that every time you eat, it is a programming you're turning on. It is a expensive, difficult programming. So our second and our third pillar, they go hand in hand. Our fasting protocols turn on our protective genes. They're genes to saying, hey, take care of yourself, redistribute resources, repair the cell, chew down portions that are become sluggish and not working for us. So the fasting portion makes us more resilient. If you can't go 4 hours without food, you're feeble. You're awful to take hunting. Imagine we got to go into the backcountry, and every 4 hours, like, guys, we got to stop. I got to eat. I can't keep going. It's like, I can't bring this guy anywhere. So when we're designed to do this well. We're designed to eat and store. So, feast and famine type of lifestyle. And there's tons of benefits that come from fasting, both cognitively, neurologically, metabolically, and so on and so forth. So the third one that goes into with the fasting is that digestion. No matter what creature you are, either you're a spider or a fungus or a human being, digestion is an expensive process. You have to make enzymes that you have to safeguard. You can't have the active enzyme, otherwise you're going to digest yourself. And then you have to put that enzyme out, activate it, and it has to do the work. Then you have to absorb all the food that you digested, and it doesn't digest perfectly either. So this process is expensive. So if you're over consuming, you're going to die faster. If you are consuming things constantly, you're expending your resources far more. It's not as good of a return on investment. So the individuals that are both having quality of life, one, they don't eat obsessively or compulsively. Rather, there is, I would say, a ceremonial, a ritual to eating. You eat in company, you eat in a community. There's also a very important notion that when you eat is that you're not in a stressed out state. You're not moving about. It's very simple. Flight or fight or rest and digest. I think a lot of us know these two type of states we can be in. Rest and recuperate. Rest, recover, redistribute. There's a lot of things going on with that part of the nervous system. And if I'm eating while I'm hustling, moving around, I didn't actually use that rest and digest pathway. I didn't activate that part of the nervous system. And so the food that's supposed to be nourishing actually ends up being quite hard and problematic. It might even be toxic because it reaches the wrong place without it getting digested. Now it's getting fermented by bacteria. It's causing gas. It's causing bloating. It might even stiffen and distend my intestines. And so there's so many consequences if we do things, I would say, out of step or out of sequence. So very simple in that notion is digestion very expensive. And the better you take care of your digestion, the better you make the easy, how would you say it, move with your food, whether it's adding fenugreek and cumin and things to help you pre-digest, or whether it's simply the practice of spending time eating 2 meals a day instead of 3, or eating one meal where it's a long, nice meal. It has the proper sequence of food. Now, the cold exposure is very simple, right? There's a process called hormesis, meaning that when you expose yourself to a stressor, you turn on hormones and you adapt to that stress. So cold is a stress you respond to. You don't have to be a hero. You don't go into the cold if never being exposed to the cold and try go in there for 10 minutes. No, you do a minute. And the next time, a minute and 2 seconds. The next time, a minute, 5 seconds. And it's a very simple process in which your body upregulates and changes what's, in its on its walls, right? You re-outfit your house of structure, and it becomes way more resilient. There's plenty of benefits for it, but from vascularization to inflammation to hormonal regulation to cellular turnover, cellular gene expression of heat shock and cold shock proteins. So lots of good comes from cold. And then the last one, the hardest one, your temperament is something in which is your way of default responding to life. Now you can set that over time. You can say, hey, I don't like the way I'm responding, so I can change it. But if I squeeze an orange, I get orange juice. Right now, if I squeeze Daniel Lucas, what comes out? Is it going to be rage? Is it going to be joy? Is it going to be humor? Is it going to be sarcasm? And so your temperament really is the sail that'll pull you through the good and the bad times. Because it's easy when it's good, but when it's rough, what happens to you? How do you get through the storm? How do you get through those dark times? How do you get through the winters that are longer than expected? And that temperament serves an individual in which such a way is that it maintains their belief structure, it maintains their physiology. And another way to say it, and I think it's landed a few times, is that these individuals that have this type of temperament, they're religious without the religion, right? They have a reverence for life. They have an unshakable faith in themselves, and you can't really get them off their game. And with hey, when it's my time, it's my time. That's their attitude. They have a very laissez-faire and a great love for what's happening around them, and they're not bitter. They're usually poking and prodding and trying to find some level of, call it, humor. And they say humor is a sign of intelligence. I don't know about that because I don't seem to be too funny, but they have this type of temperament, and so it serves them very well. So now, why isn't exercise in the top thing? Why isn't nutrition the top thing? Remember, I tried to do a very fair comparison, right? Individuals don't sit around in their house all day doing no movement, no activity. Walking's enough, but if you're sitting in your house all day, you don't make it to 80 in a healthy state. You're going to get disease, right? You're going to have problems. You're going to have arthritic problems, immune problems, lymphatic problems. You're going to have some cardiovascular problems. And so I'm not going to compare people that are having disease states to someone that is healthy. In order for us to be able to tease apart from a model perspective, what is it that's really driving someone's, call it, health from decent to superior, right? So hopefully that was sort of a nice short overview of pillars, and all of them translate into a very, let's say, mirrored way of what we've understood from the molecular sciences at the cellular level of what it means to make it to a long and healthy lifespan and health span. And it's I think it's important to distinguish those two, because an athlete, for example, will do a great job of making their cellular structure very healthy and they could last 100 years, but they don't take care of the physiology. So most athletes die of a heart attack or stroke later in life, before the actual average age of death. So this is the sort of tipping the scale of what we have to take into account. Can your cells make it to 100? Like, can you take care of the actual physics? Can you take care of yourself to make it to 100? And what I shared there was you taking care of yourself. What are the big picture items that you have to take part in order to be able to do that proper um, adaptation for the cells? And obviously, there's tons of small little nuances or bigger nuances that incorporate in each of those pillars, and in what you can do to be able to shape your health, whether you want to make it to 80 or 100. There's tons of things that you can do to shape your health.
Mr. Daniel, as bridging the gap between health and science, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
The short term goal is to get a lot more resources out for people that they can see my work. So it's not all talking. They can get access to the gut cleaning protocols, or to the extent of really what it means to be able to clean out your gut. Right, I see that's a big part of today's health. Another ones are very simple. I have 2 books in the pipeline. I have a uh, guide to practical longevity, and I have fundamentals of modern health. So those are the short-term goals that'll be up there on the website in sequence in the short amount of time. The long-term goal is really this community for what I would say taking control of your biology, to be able to be part and a leader in helping individuals do that N of one approach so that they can take charge of their metabolism, they can master their metabolism and decide which way it goes. And so that is the longer term goal, is to build out this community so people have confidence that when they come, they're in an environment that's really nurturing for growth on both the intellectual level, but in taking care of the individual. Because the human being is what's interesting, right? Population stuff, it's all right. We lose a lot of cool information, but the you as the individual is the part that's worth the investigation, right? And this is a big part why I've stepped away from the big conglomerates ways of approaching science, because I think the individual has a lot of merit. So taking that one individual, seeing them through time, rather than taking a time point and looking at tens of thousands of people where you dismiss everything that's interesting.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Daniel,
Thank
and
you.
looking forward for more empowering advocacy, and for sure looking forward for more success and the books itself. What will be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
Well, I mean, I think it's that's a don't take my path. It's a, maybe not the easiest, but I would say very simply is that take a moment to look and examine your language and examine your belief structure, right? As a scientist, you have no qualms in being able to have your belief structure challenged. Heck, you invite somebody else to be able to change your belief structure because it makes you a better person. And the more that you're trying to hold on to, I would say, fragile ideas, it's they're not serving you, right? And so the law of vibration is a little bit backwards in the way it's thought, is that you're not trying to attract something to you by trying to be of a certain state. It's rather that you are a certain state. You have a certain vibration. You have a certain thing that you're going to attract. And all you have to do is let go of the things that are preventing you from getting that, because you're born unique. There's only one of you, and you have a certain gift. You have a certain light to share. So take off all the things slowly that's preventing you from resonating in such a way that's going to bring to you what you want. And a lot of that comes with the mental mechanics of beliefs that go against your greater being.
Yes, we are all unique people. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey? And thank you for that advice.
Now, the most influential book in my life has been The Hermetic Principles. As a scientist, I've gone through the statistics to try to figure out how we're going to use this to be able to get some numerics out of whatever it is that I've set up as an experiment. But the Hermetic Principles is 7 principles of existence. And those helped shape and explain a lot of what science has done on extreme details, on painstaking formulas and concepts and laws. But this spells it out very simply what's going on. To know the background code of reality, so to speak. So Hermetic principles really changed the way in which I approach, gave me more confidence than ever in understanding really the fabric of our reality.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for that recommended books, Mr. Daniel. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast. Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love Letters in third season. And my movie 101 review and music 101 in fourth season. And Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Daniel, what emerging longevity science of technology excites you the most? And how might it integrate with these five pillars in the future?
The one is obviously what can I physically do on a day-to-day basis to be able to tap in and modify my health. And so, it's a cliche to say breathing exercises is you understanding how to tap into your breathing exercises can drastically impact your health. So something I've done over the last decade as a way of going into the cold exposure, you learn breathing techniques so that you really make yourself feel like you're superhuman. These breathing techniques have transferred into me being able to, at any point in time, clear my nostrils. If I have any sniffle, if I have any congestion through breathing exercise, I can open up my airways. So it's very subtle stuff, but remember, oxygen is at the heart of your metabolism. And so being able to play with your breath is something I think very important. It's a key part of meditation. And it's something that happens to you at the same time that you're doing it. And it helps bridge a part of mental mechanics in which allows you to tap into very much so more life, to bring up the engines to burn up, clean up your system. So the breathing one is quite, I think, evident. The obvious one in terms from the medical perspective, or at least from the heavy duty science perspective, are peptides. So we have an incredible biological library, repository, databases, and our understanding of how to take fragments of a protein and use that for absolute unbelievable augmenting of our health is really, really exciting. I think it's going to be a lot of red tape, a lot of difficulty, a lot of struggle for the average individual, or for it to get finally to the everyday man, but we're already getting there, right? So there's small peptides that are available to help you recover from injury, and that's very exciting, right? Because they're also dirt cheap to print. It's very rare. We have peptide sequencers. You press a button and you print them out. So they should never be too expensive. Obviously, you're gonna have to pay for the patent and kind of technical know-how and whatnot. So those are the two parts I think that are very exciting. That's one is here right now. You can do and you can practice with and you can involve and take part in. And then the other part is something that is both on the horizon and a great opportunity, I think, for humanity as we look into the forefront of more and more biological prowess and understanding of what we really are as human beings.
Mr. Daniel Tausan, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your projects, or anything that you're doing right now?
Absolutely. So if you're interested, if you liked what I had to offer, please check out timelinesciences.com. We have one timeline. We use science to describe it. If you need coaching programs, bioanalytics, if you're looking for that practical longevity, this is what I'm about. And I'm about connecting you to the science that'll transform your life.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Daniel Tausan because if you support him for sure, more and more empowering advocacy to come. So, Mr. Daniel, thank you so much for your time.
Daniel, it's been a pleasure.
More to come, people. See you soon.